Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Screen Overload Movie Talk. In this episode, what we're going to do is a special. I know we're into January now, but I think it's best that we have a look at what films came out last year, and I'm just going to give you a rundown of the films that I thought were really cool. This is our best of 2017 rundown. It's in no particular order. I'm just going to talk about films I enjoyed, but I will let you know which film I did think stood out the most for me in 2017. So let's get to it. So the first on my list is It. It's a great film that came out last year, an updated version from the old version that we had starring Tim Curry in the 90s. This was a very cool, very scary, very interesting take on the film, a lot more gritty, a lot more violent, and it really showed that you can take these properties and these things that you are familiar with and put a really cool, interesting spin on it. Bill Skarsgård played the character Pennywise, and it was just a really good performance. I loved the child actors in it, the way they played the losers. I think the whole thing was just great, and it had to make the list. Another film that I really enjoyed last year was Colossal, starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. It was a great film, but to talk too much about it would actually ruin the film. But it was just a very sort of different film. It's mainly involved sort of kaijus and about a woman who's going through a lot and kind of just trying to find herself. And it's a film with a lot of twists. It doesn't seem to tell you what's actually going on with the film until you get to a particular point in the film, which is very interesting. It's not kind of what you expect, but that worked for the film. I largely enjoyed it. Another film that I enjoyed last year was The Villainess. Now, I have a ridiculous love affair with Korean films as it is, so this was just something astounding. It had one of the best action sequences I've seen in a very, very long time, completely shot in first person. It's just a revenge thriller, just hell-bent. There's this character, the female, the lead character, if you will, is just hell-bent on revenge. I mean, there's things that happen with her family in the tail, and then Kill Bill meets, John Wick meets all of this other kind of stuff. It's just amazing. The central characters were really good, the plot was really good, and the action was second to none. It's a great film, and if you haven't seen it, please go and watch this film. It's amazing. Wonder Woman, DC's first entry, that was a success, if you want to say that, last year. Wonder Woman was a great film directed by Patty Jenkins. She made a film that was really great. It was empowering for women, not only for women, but it showed men that they can make these feminine characters strong and likable, very much like Superman and Batman. And it's worthy to be on the list and to have received some of the awards that it did in 2017. Baby Driver was another film that we enjoyed last year. It was a great film by Edgar Wright. It's slightly different to sort of what you would expect from him. It felt a little bit Tarantino, but that's not bad. I would say it was a great film. Great performances from Ansel Elgort. He was really good in the film. Jamie Foxx was great. But if you really want to know what I thought of the film, there is a review that I did earlier in the year, so go and check that out, guys. But it was a great film, worthy to be on the list as well. Get Out was the next film that I put on the list. I thought it was just a great film and a play on social commentary. There's so many things you can take out of it. It's uncomfortable, but in a way that makes you keep watching the film. That's what you want. It talks about, if you will, the landscape of the culture, of society, of all of these different things about race, politics, and it's just a film that I think everyone has to watch. It asks questions, and I think a film should leave you asking questions, and it doesn't always have to have the answers, but I think it needs to leave you thinking something and feeling things, and Get Out certainly did that for me. Dunkirk was another film that I put on the list for 2017 top 10 best films of the year, and I think it's a worthy addition on there. I mean, another great film by Christopher Nolan. He's very good at making these films that feel feel like there's urgency to it. You're not sure where the story is going, even though people who would be familiar with the Dunkirk story, it still had a lot of weight and a lot of heft to it. But if you really want to know what I think, again, there's a great review that I've done on this one. Go and check that out on the channel as well, guys. Next up is Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok was one of the best Marvel films I've seen in a long time. I enjoyed it. Chris Hemsworth, put a very interesting take on the God of Thunder. I loved it. Mark Ruffalo, I enjoyed his portrayal of the Hulk / Bruce Banner. It was just different. It was funny. I just think what they're doing with it, they seem to have found a formula that works for this character and for what they're doing with this side of the Marvel Universe. And I just enjoyed it. But again, if you do want to know a little bit more about what I thought on this film, go and check out the review that we've done on the channel as well. The next film that we're going to look at is probably the film that I think was my favorite of 2017, and I didn't think it would be. Logan. I absolutely loved it. I mean, Hugh Jackman, portrays his character. It's his last outing, and it feels like a last outing. I mean, I won't spoil the film for anybody, but it feels like, very old school Western, in the vein of like Shane and, Unforgiven, and some of these kind of older films. The older gunslinger comes back out for one last hurrah, if you will. And it just works for what they've done with this character. We've enjoyed seeing Hugh Jackman portray Wolverine for a long time, and we've seen all these different iterations, but this is the first time it feels like he's allowed to cut loose as the character. And I mean, the R rating, or 15 certificate in the UK, allowed it to be something completely different to kind of what we're expecting, and it worked. I mean, great central performance by Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart as well. I think his character's great in the film. And then you've got Daphne Keane, who plays X-23, Laura Kinney, and she's just great. She's brilliant to watch on screen. I mean, every time you see her, when you see her start popping her claws, it's amazing. It's just good. I loved it to bits. And just the idea of that, there's this character who didn't care about himself, and he just wanted to be left alone, and you just see that there's this thing that he has to do, and he cares more about it than himself, and that's worth watching. It's great to see him have this big heroic hurrah and finale, and it's just, it was mesmerizing to watch. And I think it's one film I could definitely come back to. It transcends the genre. It moves beyond being a comic book film, and that's what you want it to do. That's why I think it's just top of the list. It was a great film. I mean, the next films that I've put on there is Spiderman Homecoming. I'm a massive Spider-Man fan. I enjoyed all the stuff with Sam Raimi back in the day. I even enjoyed the Andrew Garfield stuff from the Amazing Spider-Man series. But this is a refreshing breath of fresh air. Tom Holland plays the character really great. Brings him back to his high school roots. He's very quippy, very fun, deals with all of the things that a teenage Spider-Man should deal with, even the caliber of villain. I love the fact that it's connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we get characters like Tony Stark in there, and it's just brilliant to watch. It's lovely, it's light, it's fun, and I can't wait to see what they do with the character going forward. I loved it. But it's just largely a great film, but what we're going to do now is just obviously have a look at some of the honorable mentions that didn't make it into my top 10. So Split was a great film from last year. It didn't make the top 10, but it was a really cool film. John Wick 2 was another great film from last year. The Handmaiden was a good film. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was another great film. Just missed out on the top 10. I enjoyed probably 4 a bit more in terms of the Marvel films and Spider-Man than I did Guardians. I loved Guardians, but just not as much as I enjoyed the first film, if I'm being honest. And on top of that, the last honorable mention that I'm going to put on there is Blade Runner 2049. Visually, it was great. But I don't know. I think it's there are things to it that work, and then there are perhaps things that don't work, but it's really still a great film, and I'd encourage you to go out and watch that as well. If you agree with my list and you like what I've put on there, I'll just give you the quick rundown of the films that I enjoyed that I put on there. So I had Colossal, Baby Driver, The Villainess, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Logan, Thor, Get Out and Dunkirk. They were my top films of 2017. I loved all of the films that I've put on my list. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what you made your list, because obviously you're hearing mine, but you know, everyone's got their own thoughts on what they think the films could have been, and whether I should have put things like Star Wars on there maybe. Yeah, but this is my list and this is what I thought were the best films. So if you like what you've heard, guys, like, comment, subscribe. So let me know what you thought.